What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Over the weekend, we put up a couple of videos. Did a video on the PlayStation 5 rumors about its, the amount of power that it would have compared to the Xbox or the Series X, and it possibly being a little weaker. Just a few rumors talked about there. And yesterday, put up a big thing about the Nintendo 64 from GameStop that I picked up, and kind of a little bit of history for me in the 64 during Christmas time throughout a couple of years. So if you missed those, go check them out. And of course, we did the Spawncast Saturday night. Today, though, we have a couple things to go over, which includes the Switch Lite apparently being hacked, which is a big deal considering that uses the newer X1 that is considered to pretty much not be hackable at all. But it looks like it only took a couple of months for that to happen. We're going to go over that today, as well as Sony possibly teasing something big at CES. People are thinking it might be PS5 related. I have a couple of other ideas in mind for that one. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit the like button. It does help out, especially recently. You guys have been liking the videos quite a bit, and it's been helping out a lot. Trust me, I can see it, and I do appreciate that. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe down below with the little red button and the bell on. That way you can stay up to date with all of the gaming news that's going on in the gaming world. And we're going to start today with the Initiative, which is Microsoft's studio that they themselves have formed, and it's even been dubbed by some media outlets as Quadruple A. Yeah, they've been hiring a lot of big-time talent from all over the place, and now there's another hire. In fact, we seem to keep talking about who they're hiring and not necessarily about their game because they have not unveiled it yet. Hopefully that's something that we'll find out about at E3, maybe. Maybe it's something we hear about during the Series X unveiling. But let's talk about who they hired. So as of December, principal environment artist Eric Jacobson has now joined the Initiative. That was December 2019, and he actually worked as a senior staff environment artist at Sony Santa Monica, and that was, of course, during the God of War game. So that seems like a pretty good pickup for them overall. It doesn't necessarily mean that all of a sudden it's gonna have this ridiculous looking environment or anything like God of War, but to bring in this kind of talent means they are building most likely a very large game, and I'm curious what it is exactly, specifically because they're bringing in so much talent from all over the place. Naughty Dog, for example, some developers from there. It's gonna be something to keep an eye out for. That, Playground Games, and of course we know that we have Halo Infinite and a few others, including Hellblade 2. Seems like Microsoft is building up quite the lineup. We'll just see if it can deliver alongside that Series X. Also, going into 2020, we're officially on Bayonetta 3 watch. We're looking for when this game is going to be shown again after we saw it years ago at this point, right? I mean, that's where we are now, going to 2020. Years ago, it seems, for the Game Awards, with Bayonetta 3 being officially announced next to the collection. It's been a while, and we haven't seen anything else. Every time a direct pops up, we're like, ooh, Bayonetta 3 maybe? Yeah, maybe. Well, everyone keeps asking. Hideki Kamiya actually responded on Twitter simply saying the development is going well and saying, there you go. Now, that's great to hear, but I think we'd like to at least see something about it. That's the thing that would really put some people at ease right now, because of course things can happen behind the scenes that we don't know about. Things can be rebooted that we don't know about. And I feel like if they could show us something at this next direct that we assume is going to be January or February, and at least give us the 2020 year, and they're pretty confident about that, I would hope, because that means it's been in development for years and years at this point. That would really, I think, put some people at ease. Here's hoping 2020 is the year of Bayonetta 3. Oh, and a quick update for that Witcher 3 situation. You remember the Witcher, of course, the series came out on Netflix, and it seemed to push a lot of people back to the game, and Steam was tracking this, and it told us that it had this sharp incline of people just playing it on Steam, concurrent player count when everyone's playing it, and it looks like it's now past the original launch numbers. Yes, it's pretty crazy to see this, but we're seeing more people now hitting Witcher 3 than prior. Now they're up to about 94 to 95,000 concurrent people, and that was a pretty much a record set for that game now, whereas in 2016 when it launched, it's about 92,000. It's really showing how strong, I guess, the Witcher series is in general, because it's able to go to Netflix, work well there for the audience, and then bring more people in to the game. It makes you wonder if maybe other companies, whether it's Nintendo, Microsoft, or Sony, should really push hard into these series and possibly bring new people in to their games. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with this supposedly hacked Switch Lite. Now, I say supposedly because We don't really know how it's being done or if it's really being done. We kind of have a video of this happening from Team Executor, and they have released products, again, products that they're selling for the Switch, the regular Switch, the one that's been hacked all over the place. It's pretty straightforward to hack that one. Everyone's been doing it. If you've wanted to do it, it's not too hard to get it done. So Team Executor has some issues in the hacking community, we'll say, and it looks like now they've put out a new video that showcases them using the Switch Lite to access a game that through the gallery and through other methods in order to do that if you have a hacked Switch. And it is bringing up the question if this is real, and that is a question I still have. However, they did accompany this video with a message saying, "Happy holiday seasons from everyone at Team Executor. We rocked the Switch in 2019, and with the year soon over, here is a little teaser of one of the things to come early 2020. Now, there's a few things to look at here. One, I would assume this is a hardware modification, which means it is going to eliminate quite a few people from probably doing this, because the regular Switch, you don't even have to really open the thing, I guess, to modify it. It's pretty easy to do. However, it's a bit different with the Switch Lite, and that probably means you have to open it up and you have to maybe get the soldering iron out and go a bit further than most people are willing to go. And seriously, there are people who the tri-wing screw is enough. Like, it seems weird that Nintendo picks that thinking it'll keep people out. It does. It does keep some people out. So we're already just talking about screws now. You're talking about soldering to the board. That alone just, again, just eliminates a lot of people from trying it. Now, I think they're pointing out the Switch Lite because if it was just the regular V2 Switch, people would say, that's just the regular Switch. Showing the Switch Lite absolutely shows that they are, of course, using a system that would have the newer Tegra chipset, and that is interesting. I'm curious how they are doing that, because everyone seemingly in the hacking community is curious how they are doing this. Now, they've had history before, like I said, and they did release their own piece that they sold, and yeah, it hacked the Switch, sure, but that wasn't, I think, as big of a deal as what we're seeing here. Now, apart from the obvious issues around hacking these systems, which includes piracy, right? Let's be straight up about that. One interesting bit here is that we have this Tegra chip that we don't really know what it can do outside of saving the Switch battery life, which it does very well, but it's also a more efficient chip, which results in that better battery life that's had a lot of people in the homebrew community wonder, what happens if you start overclocking that chip? What kind of performance can you squeeze out of it, but then retain battery life that's comparable to the regular Switch, right? What kind of clock speeds can it hit? These are questions that people have right now around the current Tegras in these Switch systems, the Switch Lite and the Switch V2. And, well, this is how you would find out if there really is a way to modify and hack the Switch, run homebrew. You'd be able to figure that out, and that could, of course, give us a glimpse at what Nintendo and Nvidia could be doing going forward. So there is some good to take away from this, but yes, this is something Nintendo is going to be keeping a close eye on, because if it gets a little too out of hand with this, and it looks like they're going to be releasing a product that's fairly easy to do, and they are messing with Nintendo's board and possibly they'll look for anything, right? You're messing with our patent. You're messing with our copywritten code. They'll figure whatever they can out, and they'll go probably find them. It's going to be interesting to see if Nintendo makes a move on this when this becomes public, seemingly early 2020. Or hey, maybe nothing's actually done here and it's a publicity stunt. We'll see in a couple months. Next up, let's talk about an award that Nintendo has won. It's not a great award. It's actually being deemed the most fragile product of 2019. Yeah, not a great award to win, and it seems to be pointing to the Joy-Con drift issue that surfaced and took over the internet for a while there over this past year in 2019. This award was actually given by the French Consumers Association, labeling Nintendo as one of the worst companies of the year in the country alongside chain stores like FNC's, with those Joy-Cons being the main reason behind that. And I mean, there's a lot of frustration around the Joy-Con drift, and of course, the Switch Lite just having those joysticks in there has not made people very comfortable with the idea of that happening, but at least in Nintendo of America has attempted to remedy this by replacing them outright. I can't say the same for everywhere in the world, but definitely not an award that I assume Nintendo would want to win, mostly because they have, for a while, been known as more of a quality hardware company, right? I mean, we talked about the 64 yesterday. That thing's a tank. Not even GameStop can mess that thing up. And we've, of course, talked about the GameCube also being a fairly sturdy system. It had a handle on it. So, yeah, this is a bit more the opposite direction for Nintendo, but hopefully they figure out those Joy-Cons, and hopefully, if this is something that carries over into the next generation, they have it all solved before then. Next up, let's talk about Sony at CES 2020, because this is a potential spot, at least a lot of people are thinking it could be, where the PlayStation 5 could pop up in some form or another. I have my doubts about that. However, I certainly would not have told anyone that the Series X, Microsoft's next-gen system, would have appeared at the Game Awards, so what do we know at this point, right? Sure, okay, it could pop up. I will say that. However, I think it's a more slim chance for it to be there in physical form or even in a trailer. But Sony is surely going to be there with some interesting products, we'll say, after they posted this up saying, Sony CES, the future is coming. Now, Sony's CES presentation is dated for January 26th. That's 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern time. That's in Las Vegas. And it does appear that they will have something interesting to show. Now, these companies show up with TVs that most of us, I would say almost all of us, can't afford, because they show up with TVs that are like $80,000. And, you know, they're significantly ahead. They're mostly to show what the future can look like going forward if technology continues to progress and catch up. You know, they show up with 8K TVs, and hey, 8K technology is actually getting down in price compared to what it was a few years ago now. Yeah, they've been showing up with these big TVs for years to CES, but I think the most likely thing they'll show up here with, they'll show up with TVs, but they'll show up with TVs that have HDMI 2.1 as part of the package, which is something they've needed to work out, considering the PlayStation 5 is most likely going to have HDMI 2.1. It's already been touted as a 4K system that's capable of like 120 frames per second, all of that. They've talked all of this stuff, but they need that HDMI 2.1 plug on the back, and I think that's something that they will show up there with. There's a good chance they also show up with some new cameras. That'll be a big thing, I'm sure, and then a whole bunch of other consumer technology that we won't be able to get our hands on for a while within a reasonable price. Again, a glimpse towards the future. That's why it's always fun to see CES, just to see what we could end up with, you know, us like 5 to 10 years from now. But PS5, maybe, just not as a big blowout event. They could mention it. They could. I just don't see them showing up with like a 20-minute presentation. Here's all the cool stuff the PS5 is going to have. I think it's mostly going to be TV and camera focused. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Akira. Not necessarily the 80s cartoon, the movie that is a classic. I'm talking about the game, the one from the 90s that technically never released, but it was being developed. There was a full prototype that was kind of being built in 1993. I believe it was designed for a 1995 launch on the Megadrive. Yeah. And something interesting has happened over the last few days. It's been found online. Well, it's at least been leaked online. A prototype was found, and it's been put out there. There is a full video, and they play as much as they can. I'll give them credit. Look, it's a prototype board. It has glitches. It has issues. I see why this game was not finished, though. It looks insane. And by insane, I mean they have several different games almost packed in. They got a first-person like view that they're running through that almost look like a Doom or Wolfenstein. They have side-scrolling action. They have like a side shooter. They have so much stuff happening in here. It goes into like a beat-em-up style game, and they try to, at least it seems like anyway, they try to reenact scenes from the movie, at least from what I was seeing in this YouTube video. It is really, really cool. I would check the video out and kind of look through it, especially if you're a big fan of Akira, because this game, I think if it was done, again, it might have gone a bit out there, and maybe it wouldn't have been complete without some crazy glitches or something. I think it could have been kind of a classic to look back on, and hey, it's out there now, so maybe some people go back and play around with it and try to do some work to it. I'm not sure, but I gotta say, I think I would have at least rented this one back then, just based on how it looks, because it just looks like there's a lot there for a 16-bit system. We're talking about the Genesis, and you see some of the stuff that's happening, it looks way more advanced, and maybe that's another reason, but really cool to see, one, some retro news that was very meaningful, something like this, and two, to see it actually put out there and being played. Pretty neat. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This one's from Richard saying, seeing as Atlas and Nintendo were willing to take a risk on re-releasing Tokyo Mirage Sessions, I think Bandai Namco could have moderate success releasing a Xenosaga collection, even as a digital download. I think it would be worth the risk. So I believe you are correct as well. Even if they didn't want to go the physical route, whatever, digital only, it's better than nothing, right? The only way at this point, I mean, it sounds like they were getting close. They did some market research, and I guess they decided no one knows what Xenosaga is. We're going to move on. But how long ago was that? because we've seen some success from Monolith since then, right? And I think people would be interested in Xenosaga HD Collection at this point. And you know what? If Bandai's not willing to do it, maybe it's worth Nintendo going to them and saying, hey, let's talk about that Xenosaga HD Collection again. We're interested. You know, we pretty much have the big share of Japan at this point, and we think the West, which has been growing in the JRPG sector, I think they'd be interested as well. Let's make a deal and let's make it a Switch exclusive. I mean, if it's up to Nintendo, again, it either exists or it doesn't. Yeah, let's see that happen. Otherwise, I have my doubts about Bandai Namco taking a risk on that. They're not really into that kind of risk. So who knows? Maybe a company comes along and tries to help them make it happen. And guys, gonna do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit the like button. It does help out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today. Whether it's that Switch Lite apparently being hacked. What do you think about that video? And what do you think about the Switch Lite actually being opened up for homebrew? You think that's a possibility? Because before it sounded like it was pretty much shut down by Nintendo with that new chip. Also, what about Sony at CES? It's coming up pretty soon, right? It's what, like a week from now? What do you think they're gonna show there? You think it's just gonna be TVs and cameras, or you think they're gonna surprise us all with a PlayStation 5 reveal? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.